Welcome back. Engineer and political commentator John Peters is weighing in on the raging debate surrounding COVID-19 spread on Ireland. One is the debate regarding what caused the current spike in cases. Was it the SLP rally as suggested by Health Minister Mary Isaac in the Senate on Thursday? Is it backdoor entry as stated by the Prime Minister but not supported by the CMO? And then there is the debate of how to handle the current spike in cases. Should the country close its borders to tourists or not? At this point of the COVID-19 response, John Peters says debate about what caused the spike in cases is irrelevant. What he says is important is the fact that the influx in cases has happened and the country has a rapidly developing situation on its hands.
I think those conversations have diverted the attention that is required of a nation to begin to focus on what I would say is the greatest challenge that we have ever faced as a nation. We cannot have a situation where it is now a political football as to whether a particular march caused it or whether a backdoor entry caused it. The fact remains that it is now within our borders, and therefore a national effort is required to deal with this situation.
Peters underscores the need for astute leadership during such times and is critical of the approach of Prime Minister Alan Shastney.
In a war, there is strong leadership, but that strong leadership has to be coupled with, empathy, some sort of connectivity with your people, carrying that message across, because it is important for the message to be conveyed to the people, to the population. And you cannot run it as in an autocratic manner. It doesn't work that way. People respond differently to these issues. And I would say that where the government has failed is in trying to connect with the people and explaining to the people the issues that are relevant at this point in time.
But he argues that the opposition missed a golden opportunity to demonstrate leadership itself with its national protest.
Though the march was approved by the CMO, I'm not sure that it was probably the best decision to be made at the time. Yes, we were in a time when it was said that we were COVID-free, whatever that means. But it was important to convey to people the importance of social distancing. It was an important time to convey a message to the people that despite our political objections, the issues of health come to the fore. An issue of health will drive the decision-making process always in the political sphere. Despite that, it is also a fact that there has been no linkage between the march and the uprising. I think that is a factual statement. That fortunately for us, that march did not create a significant super spreader event.
On the debate regarding whether to close the tourism sector, he says this would spell disaster for the country.
If the numbers that are put forward by the Ministry of Tourism are accurate, we're talking about 5,000 people that are now back in employment. And if you're talking about that magnitude of dislocation that took place during COVID, our tourism sector is probably operating at 25–30%. It means, therefore, that you have to recognize the importance of keeping your tourism sector going despite the challenges that you face. Because there is no way the government can respond in creating employment for 5,000 people in such a short space of time. That is impossible to do.
Peters urges everyone to remain focused on winning the war against COVID-19. Over the weekend, several voice notes went viral explaining how St. Lucian fishermen were accosted and robbed on the waters between St. Lucia and St. Vincent. The fishermen claimed to have been held at gunpoint and threats of kidnapping were supposedly made. Following the incident, the operations manager of the Goodwill Fishermen's Cooperative Society has urged fishers to be vigilant. He says the incident is being investigated and explained that attacks on fishermen are not new. Genevieve Gonzague reports.
Just weeks after fishermen overcame the hurdle of being barred from traversing the waters, some have experienced another ordeal. On Saturday 14th, voice notes began circulating alerting fishermen that a fishing vessel had been accosted at gunpoint on the open seas by fishing vessels identified as having Venezuelans on board who demanded money and other possessions. Reports indicate that while these fishermen were not St. Lucians, a similar incident involving St. Lucian fishermen had taken place a few weeks ago. The operations manager of the Goodwill Fishermen's Cooperative Society Limited, Kejiana Tuse Shalri, says fishermen being robbed and held at ransom is nothing new, but the frequency of this trend is getting increasingly worrisome.
It's already a daunting task for fisherfolk, as the job in itself is a risky one. Battling with all the new challenges of climate change, and more recently the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic, it is sore to now have to be fearful for their life at the hands of pirates. According to the account from the two fishers who fell victim, they fearfully gave up their GPS, phones, money, etc. in exchange for their life because they were forced to, as threats of kidnapping in exchange for ransom was made by the Venezuelans.
Shalri indicated that many local and regional bodies have come together to ensure that the lives of fisherfolk are safeguarded more.
What we also did as a fisherfolk community is that we were in conversation with our Department of Fisheries as well as the Marine Unit to see what measures we can put in place to ensure that the fishers' lives are safeguarded. The information reaching us is that the RSS has also been informed, and so on a regional level, these safeguards are being put in place and they are trying to deal with the issue at hand.
Fishermen are being urged to protect themselves as well as remain vigilant when venturing out as much as possible until the known threat has been detained.
So we urge the fishers to be vigilant. I am not sure at this point that we can pinpoint exactly what some of the measures that they can take are. But what we urge them is to be very vigilant, perhaps until we have word that the threat is no longer, that we're urging them perhaps not to venture out too far out from port, so that that threat to their life is diminished. But we continue to work with the fishers, we continue to work with the authorities to ensure that we can deal with the problem.
Fishermen are being warned to stay away from vessels that are foreign to them. Fisherfolk representatives say this incident is unfortunate. However, fishermen need to be aware that these are some of the dangers associated with the occupation. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzalez.
As of today, Monday, the 16th of November, all bars will close at 4 p.m. for the next 2 weeks. The measure was implemented to combat the spread of COVID-19 on island and is one of many other measures announced by Prime Minister Alan Shastney. Bar owners spoke to Hot 7 TV News about how they feel about the protocol and what it means for their bottom line. Caroline Nurse says a 6 o'clock close time would have been better.
It's affecting it because, I mean, 4 o'clock, that's when most people coming from work. At least they already said to us, grab and go. I could understand the grab and go, but I mean, closing 4 o'clock is not good. At least they could have told us 6 o'clock. I do not have a problem with the 6 o'clock. But the 4 o'clock is affecting me. I can see it's already affecting me, because most of my customers coming in right now, and then I have to tell them I'm closing, and they have to do something else.
On the other hand, Janice Viti says she has no problem with the new closing time of 4 p.m.
No, it ain't really affecting me. What is to be will be. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with it. I don't have no problem with it.
The grab-and-go policy for purchases at bars remains in effect. Tourism Minister Dominic Fede is debunking claims that tourists who are supposed to be at COVID-certified hotels are roaming the streets. The claims emerged as a video surfaced on social media of a visiting couple out and about and without masks. Fede revealed that these visitors would have come from the yachting sector, which follows protocols similar to that of returning nationals.
Well, one of the first things that we would try to do, we would first try to establish where the tourists are from. From the video, I think that they indicated that they are from the boats because the person who was doing behind the camera did ask some pertinent questions. And in following up with the institutions, what we would try to ascertain is to make sure that the protocols are being done. Now, what you have to understand, people in the yachting sector would be here for about 14 days. So there's a quarantine experience on the vessels that then when they're finished with that experience, they're then cleared to go into our communities, just as returning nationals who are coming from COVID hotspots.
Minister Fede did outline the protocols that must be followed if and when tourists do decide to engage in activities which are certified.
So if the guests require to go out on tours, they now have to go into tours that are certified, that have protocols. And so along the way, we have a very stringent and robust enforcement of the protocols within the tours, the hotels, the taxi drivers, the airport, and along the entire chain of experiences that guests would have to experience while they are here in St. Lucia. So the danger, the risk is real. We're not saying that there's no risk, but so far we have not seen any evidence to suggest that.
Since St. Lucia opened its borders back in June, there have been instances of tourists flouting the set protocols. Following the passage of a trough and the impending passage of a tropical storm, NEMO is urging for vigilance and caution on the part of residents living in areas prone to flooding and landslides. The director of NEMO says the organization is currently engaged in a disaster assessment following flooding in various parts of the island on Sunday.
The passage of a trough system on the island over the weekend led to flooding in Micoud, Dennery and Labrie. The director of the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, Doreen Gustave, says reports have been received and initial damage assessments are being undertaken.
We're still seeing moisture from that trough throughout the island. Initial report reaching us is that the area in Dennery community has been impacted severely, especially the Dennery village, Dennery South. Micoud has been impacted with flooding also, Micoud village. Labrie, we have received reports of flooding in the village, landslides throughout the island.
A tropical wave is expected to affect the island between Tuesday and Wednesday. Gustave says with moisture in the atmosphere and a great deal of soil saturation, it is imperative that residents in areas prone to flooding and landslides take every precaution.
Now we are still experiencing bad weather, so we're asking persons to remain vigilant, to note that we are still in the hurricane season. And so that kind of weather is expected. So the reports are still coming in. We will inform you as they come in as to the extent of the damage in a later report.
Dennery is an area very prone to flooding and has seen some major disasters. An early warning system for floods was developed, but Gustave says there have been some challenges with the system.
The system is not complete yet, so we don't want to speak to how effective it is or if it is effective right now. So we're looking at completing this system with funding from the World Bank with the siren, and this is how the residents will be warned that there is an impending flood.
Gustave urged any members of the public affected by flooding or landslides over the weekend to inform NEMO by calling 468-2126. A report will be presented to the cabinet once completed. This year's hurricane season has been an above normal one. Gustave says this speaks to the impact of climate change and how real the phenomenon is.
Stay with us. Still to come, bus drivers say the new traffic lights are proving to be a hindrance. The National Workers' Union rails against suggestions to close the borders to tourists. And the SDA Church suspends Mass on all compounds and goes solely digital amid COVID-19 spread.